And we're back with the third quarterfinals for the World Championship playoffs here in Utrecht. We saw a lot of incredible matches. Right now we have Joshua Smith and Rafael Neven, who were, I think, the favorites walking into this event, already being locked in for top 4, where they will try to get to the World Championship. Let's remember, it's 3 people going to the World Championship from this event. But now we have one more top 8 match. It is gonna be an incredible one. It's a Germany mirror match, we can say. So the first player is Dinh-Kha. Let's welcome him here. Hey, how are you doing? Yes, it is being an incredible season from you. I think it was something that we have not seen, where you went to 3 different YCSs, you got 3rd, 2nd and 1st place. How are you feeling right now? Are you nervous?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. I think we were talking about it when you won Milan. I was the one, actually, if you remember, to tell you, you should go for world points now. So good advice.
Yeah, it was a good advice, but I didn't thought I make it to the top 8, because around 2 months ago I lost my motivation and I stopped attending regionals.
Oh.
That's why I was far behind with points at the
Yeah, in the end, basically, it all came down to the UK Nationals, where unfortunately, or maybe not unfortunately for you, Thomas Rose lost out. He didn't make even top 128, and he got 9th place, which guaranteed you to actually be in the top cut, which was probably the highlight of the weekend. Anyway, you can go to your table. Good luck for the match. Against him is one of the other superstars from Germany this weekend. It's Adrian Dursun. Let's give it up for him. Hi, man.
Hi.
So, you have also been playing the game for quite a while. You had quite some successful performances, and I think the most one being winning nationals last year in Spain. And this year you decided to go to France. Where are you going next?
The next time, I think I will go to Romania, I think,
Okay.
because a good friend of me, Aishlo, has family there, and he wants to visit the city and stuff like that, and I'm just joining him for vacation, stuff like that.
So we know that you were quite consistent throughout the season, but I think your biggest performance, that probably is why you're here, was winning the biggest regional ever in Europe, which was Cologne, I believe. And it was with Sky Striker back then. It was quite an impressive performance. And how are you feeling? What do you think your chances are today?
My chances today, I think, they are pretty good. It's like all of our players, all of the top 8 are super good players. They had all of them a strong season. But I feel very safe with my own deck, and I think I can manage it to get into the top 3.
Nice. We're definitely hoping to see another good match. So good luck. You can go and sit in front of your opponent. So, as we said, we have 2 very good players, both from Germany, both with successes, both with 1 win under their belt, going up against each other. For this round, I will not be doing commentary. You are in very safe hands. It is going to be, again, Oliver and Daniel. So, let's just go to them.
Hello and welcome to round 3 of our World Points Playoff. We have 2 massive players here in this feature match.
Well, you could say that every round.
I mean, sure, but we have the winner of YCS Milan, who played Prank Kids, of all decks.
Yes. And he basically one-upped it. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He's not like a one-hit wonder. He's like, you thought I can only play a creative deck once? Watch me. And then he just did it all over again. Dinh-Kha is the player that I would say the fastest guy in terms of his fan club submissions.
For sure.
If he had a website after the first 2 big tournaments that he played in and almost won at first, and then he won in Utrecht,
Yep.
it would have just like skyrocketed like crazy.
Yeah. And
So-
he had an awesome performance at Dusseldorf as well.
Yes.
So,
Suddenly he's like a top contender, always near the top of the field. And he was actually also doing really well at the German National Championship, where one of his friends, another player from Berlin, eventually ended up in the finals and winning.
for sure.
So, yes, would you say he's the favorite going into this? Because it's kind of hard to say. Adrian Dursun is also no one to underestimate.
I mean, Adrian has also had such a successful season. Like, he's been topping everything. He had an excellent performance at the German Open in Cologne,
yes,
which was the largest ever regional we've had in Europe.
One of the best point grab opportunities that you had.
For sure. And that's the thing that we saw this season, is that the Open events were often very good for points, because things like nationals and things like YCSs are capped in how many points they give. But a regional, it's just for every 8 players or part thereof, there's an extra point. So, yeah, I mean, these guys, they did excellently. Dinh-Kha did an excellent job at just picking up points at YCSs, and that let him kind of take a bit more of a break.
I mean, he kind of just snuck in.
Yes.
He's the 8th ranked player, which is not saying that he's a bad player in any stretch of the imagination, obviously. But he just got in with a good performance at the German National Championships. It was like the last tournament that counted, as far as I remember, for him, at least.
I mean, you can only play 1 nationals, so he had 1 to play, and he needed to finish, I think, top 32 or higher to sneak
something
past
like
Tom.
that, and he ended up in the top cut. Whereas Tom Rose, who didn't make the cut, unfortunately, now you're feeling bad. He ended up in 9th place, and he basically said it on his Facebook profile. It all came down to nationals for him.
Yeah. It happened to him in 2017 season as well.
So you're saying every 2 years this is what's happening? So
Hopefully not.
What are you making of this tournament so far? We've had 2 absolutely amazing matches. I would say nobody could have asked for more.
Yeah, I mean, the points playoff is such an excellent opportunity for people to show how skillful they are at the game, and really show how much determination and persistence can pay off. Like, these guys have all been putting so much time into the game and so much work into the game, and there's a level that you get to where you're so familiar with everything. Like, you know, these guys sit down and they've been building their decks, and the amount of theory that has been going into things, like, they have not just shown up with these decks. Each and every one of these players, every single card choice has been dissected and said, like, hey, is this right?
And there's a very good chance that they just didn't dissect them on their own, that they were basically doing it together with some of the other players that they tend to play with, prepare for tournaments with. So there's a very good chance that there were like 6 eyes of top players looking at the deck lists of all of these guys.
For sure.
But interestingly enough, even though they have been playing at the top level for an entire year, you could tell in the first 2 matches that sometimes it was all about the experience of playing in the feature match area, all about your nerves. Are you going to make a mistake because you're not used to this weird situation that we're throwing you in here?
Yeah, for sure. And so it's something that a lot of people aren't aware of, but the pressure in the feature match area is really high.
Yes.
If you've ever been at a tournament, you know that when a judge call happens, you get a little tense. Even if you know you're fully in the right, you get a little tense.
Yes, you do.
And you have not only 2 judges standing beside you, who are there to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Even more people.
And again, judges aren't out to cause you problems. They're there to help the game progress. But it distracts you and it pulls you out of the game.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of pressure there. And then we have as big an audience as we get for any YCS finals.
That's also true, yes.
Like, there is a lot of support for the players here, and there's a lot of people interested to see what are these guys playing? How does it inform tomorrow's tournament?
It's Friday. There are other things you could be doing. There's a 3 versus 3 tournament going on at the same time, which is quite exciting. There's, I think, also speed dueling, for example. So there's different options. You could do some other things, but a lot of people said, I'm going to sign up for the main event, and then I'm just going to be sitting in the feature match area and watch 7 amazing matches that we're all going to be streaming today.
Yeah.
So the players have been hooked up with their headsets and everything, so we can start talking about the decks. Let's bring them in the deck list, so to speak.
So it's kind of the format as we are at the moment is we have, like, the overall format of the game is we have Thunder Dragon, Sky Striker, then we have Orcust and Salamangreat. And those are the big 4 decks at the moment.
At the top of the field.
And these guys are playing what I think are the best 2, which is Sky Striker and Thunder Dragon. They're both the extremes. Thunder Dragon is generally playing a list where its only spell or trap card is Sekka's Light, whereas Sky Striker is the opposite. So we have one deck of 37 spells, and we have one deck of 37 monsters.
Who's going to come out on top?
Yeah.
It's monsters versus spells.
So Dinh-Kha is playing the Thunder Dragon deck, and this kind of harkens back to when he was playing Burning Abyss and when he was playing Orcust in the Dusseldorf format, because this is a deck that can really make do of the danger cards, and you just got to play everything. And rewards players who are capable of using all of their resources and finding the best lines for those.
We did see the same matchup in the previous match. One big change is obviously Sebastian Ma was not playing Mystic Mine. Adrian Dursun is going for Mystic Mine.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
So Adrian is on striker. He is playing monster cards in the main deck, which is quite interesting. We see, most interestingly, Dino Wrestler Pankratops,
yeah.
as well as a set of Ash Blossoms and a set of Ghost Ogres.
Right.
I think this is a really good call because going into the event, we knew a lot of these players were fond of Thunder Dragon.
Right.
And if Thunder Dragon goes first, it's super favored because you set up such an impactful board. So having Mystic Mine and having points of interaction in Pankratops and in Ghost Ogre and Ash Blossom where you can kind of calm their board down a bit and then establish a mine, that just ends the game one.
Seems like a really good choice for this tournament. We're going to see how it plays out for him. Let's take you guys over to the feature match table. It's Dinh-Kha versus Adrian Dursun. All right, so the players are going to get the signal any second that they can go. How important is the die roll in this match? How important is the die roll in this
so
match?
the die roll is relatively important normally because the striker player wants to be going first. In the case that the striker player is going second, it's a lot more difficult for them to establish stuff. So realistically, what Dinh-Kha wants is to go first. If Adrian can set up a Mystic Mine going second, though,
that's a
he'll
3
be in
with
a
2
good position.
dice. Okay, so wow. Adrian Dursun with an 11. He can pick and choose. And I think he said you're going to go first.
Yeah, so he is on a going second build of striker, and we see that with the Dino Wrestler Pankratops and the Mystic Mine, because if you're establishing Mystic Mine when going first as the striker player, then you're losing out on the ability to search with your Sky Striker Ace Shizuku.
But I have to say, if there's one thing that I learned from watching a lot of matches, I would never allow Dinh-Kha to go first. This has not been a good strategy ever. These two guys obviously know each other. They might have been playing before against each other over the course of this ridiculously long season. It's like a marathon.
Yeah.
And so Dinh-Kha is allowed to go first, even though Adrian won the die roll, kicks things off and makes it very obvious where he's coming from here. Because you have to remember, in the first round, nobody knows what the other guy is playing. Second round in the semifinals, it's going to be very, very different, where we're going to be half the players reveal their deck list to their opponent prior to the match.
Yeah, and here we see a power card coming down. Sekka's Light. Not only does it mean that Dinh-Kha is getting to play a 6-card opening hand, actually 7 because he had the Thunder Dragon as well. It also gives him flexibility that he can remove dangers from his hand if he doesn't want them to hit themselves. So if he had 2 Jackalopes here, he'd be able to put one back to guarantee, because out of 7 cards, if the Jackalope hits itself, that would be very unfortunate.
I mean, how good does that feel, where you're just like, here, look at my opening and 7 cards.
Yeah, I mean...
It must be nice.
Yeah, every card counts a lot in this sort of deck. So having 7 to play around with is really great. He can even shuffle back a Thunder Dragon and get a card that actually does something, which is nice. Jackalope, obviously one of the best danger monsters because it guarantees a body on board, and that's all you need here because you're trying to combo. We want to see some Saryuja and end on a board of a lot of interaction.
Right. So good opening, good opening. Could he have asked for more? What is he missing here?
I mean, realistically, we're going to have to see. He should be able to extend into the Saryuja, and that makes such a big impact. Like, it's kind of a case of, does he have a lot of cards? If yes, he's going to end on a board with, like, Colossuses and other ways to prevent Adrian from setting up. And Colossus is super impactful in this matchup because it stops Adrian using his consistency cards, and it also isn't stopped by Mystic Mine because it's a continuous effect.
There was a terraforming in the opening hand of Adrian, but I didn't really make out much more. He was just quickly revealing his hand. And then Dinh-Kha is actually thinking about his next move, which might not sound like a big deal, but if you've been watching him at some of these high-level or high-stakes matches that he's had in the past in the feature match area, very, very often he's just going through all of his motions lightning speed.
Yeah.
So whenever this guy has to think, you better believe something is going to come up.
I mean, the awesome thing about the Danger Thunder deck is there are so many moving parts. Like, if you want to pick up a hobby where you just have to like take algorithms and solve them. There's so many small little steps and so many different routes that you can take.
What kind of hobby is that?
It's an excellent hobby.
Just have to cut you off there. What are you doing? You're collecting like clues in your free time and solving murder cases or something?
I mean, isn't that what everybody does on their
Well,
Saturday?
yesterday I heard about some of these not so bright areas in Ireland where people where things are happening that I don't want to talk about on the stream because we want to keep it PG-13.
Yeah, I mean, Ireland's a great place.
Okay, yeah.
So we're seeing Guard Dragon Elfie coming down.
Biggest pivot I've ever seen.
I mean, so this is why Dinh-Kha has to take time, is because the Guard Dragons care about where they're pointing to.
Right.
So you have to make sure that you have all of your arrows set up correctly, and so you have to be kind of considerate of where you're summoning your monsters to. This is a really nice setup. He's going to get to generate a lot of
He's
advantage.
still going places. Like, he has been doing quite a few things, quite a few summons, and he just keeps going. And quite honestly, Maxi would be such a terrible card these days. The opponent would just have like 20 cards in their opening hand every single time.
I mean, I feel like Maxi is still just a spectacular card.
Okay.
We see it. Phantasme being searched, which is
This is the moment
interesting.
where we have to tag Matt Bell for his opinion, because that's what everybody normally does.
I mean, so Phantasme that has just been searched here is acting similar to how Maxi has acted in previous formats. But even then, Phantasme is good because it lets you take your 5-card hand and shape it how you want.
Right.
Whereas the advantage of Maxi was
You just draw
you
infinite
have more
cards.
cards to play through what they set up. And so as such, like, Phantasme is not seeing play in every deck. It's only really played in Salomon Great, where you can play kind of soft combo pieces as well as hand traps. Obviously, Dinh-Kha is after deciding, hey, look, I think Phantasme is good here. And it could be, because in the mirror match, it's going to be an extra body, and it also lets you make sure that you have the cards that you like having in your hand.
I mean, no worries. Chances are at some point we're going to see Fantastical Dragon Phantasmax.
Phantasme.
No, Phantasmax.
Phantasmax.
It's like the level up version of it. And it's just going to combine both effects in one, and it's going to be super powerful.
Phantasmaxi.
Maybe we can add a C for good measure at the end. I don't know. I think you won't need it because it's already going to be awesome.
Exactly. We also had the new Ghost Hand Trap, the Nun and Dogwood, which lets you gain life points every time your opponent summons.
The German name is something with Hartriegel, which doesn't make sense at first unless you look it up in the dictionary and realize that Dogwood is actually
an actual thing.
Yeah, an actual thing. Lots of people didn't think that was the case. They just, what did you do? Why did you translate it that way? And we were like, yeah, we just looked at the dictionary. Sorry, there's this weird plant that is called Dogwood.
I mean, that card is the current judge mat for the season, which is really nice.
Actually, I heard a lot of positive feedback about that.
Yeah.
Lots of people said, yeah, that's a really cool card. And it's obviously from the same monster family of all of these hand traps, all of these powerful hand traps.
Yeah, so really interestingly, we got announced that we're going to be getting alternate arts for those cards. So we've seen Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, and we've also seen Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion. We've got their arts shown on the Yu-Gi-Oh blog just yesterday, I think, which is really exciting.
Yep. How do you feel when you're Adrian Dursun and you're just watching your opponent go through the motions for 7 minutes, and at the same time he's picking apart your opening hand? And this must be terrible, right? I mean, this seems like one of the best openings that Dinh-Kha could have asked for. Look at that hand. It's like,
I mean, you have to hope that your opponent assumes you're on the wrong thing and doesn't set up enough redundancy for dealing with what you're playing. Because something that a lot of the combo decks can fall prey to is if they don't set up enough spell and trap interactions, then Adrian will still be able to play true, because he just needs to have one spell or trap which pulls the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend here, and then he can start establishing whatever he has.
Yeah, it's interesting because as the members of Adrian's team leaving, they have seen enough. They're like, I need to take a break, I need to recover from this because it's not looking good for my friend. They seem to make it sound like Dinh-Kha is on a roll here, which is very hard to argue, obviously. What an opening. It just keeps going.
I mean, even sometimes you just want to know what your opponent's deck list is. This is a free chance to gather information. You're not under time pressure. We still have loads of time in the round, so why not just take the time, relax, let your opponent kind of stress themselves out, thinking that you have stuff, and just get to know like all of their lists. I want to know my opponent's extra deck, particularly when they're playing this type of deck, because he's going to go through 10 to 15 cards.
It's also what's interesting for me to watch this is how much Dinh-Kha has changed. I mean, he's always been like super relaxed and super cool in a sense. But the first feature match, he was still nervous about this. He didn't really know what he was doing. I mean, he knew what his deck was doing, but like how the feature match is being played in general. And at this point, he's just a stone cold killer. He's just sitting down there, and then it seems like he knows that he's got this, and he's just going through the motions, dying 20 plus summons in one turn. I'm not saying running down the clock, but obviously time is ticking away while he's doing all of these motions, and ends up with a nearly unbeatable field. I mean, this is completely psychological destruction for Adrian Dursun, in my opinion.
The really awesome thing here is he has brought down Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, which clears up one of the holes in his board normally. Because while Phantasme lets you draw cards, it also just has the ability that once per turn, if your opponent targets one of your monsters with an effect, you can discard a card and negate that. So this lets him have extra protection from Infinite Impermanence, which is something that would want to come down onto Colossus, and from Widow Anchor as well. So, and then we also have a Hope Harbinger coming down, which again, it's another spell interaction. So, I mean, Adrian is going to need to have a lot of stuff in his hand, and I'm just not seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, fortunately, Adrian played a lot of matches this past season. If this is your first match of Yu-Gi-Oh! At a bit larger tournament, and you're going up against someone like Dinh-Kha and he does this to you, you're like, okay, I'm done with this game. This must really, really hurt.
Adrian has drawn his Mystic Mine, so he just needs to find a way to play through stuff, because originally he just had the Terraforming in hand, which wouldn't have been enough. But now he can start trying to burn through the 2 pieces of interaction for spell cards that Dinh-Kha has, and if he sets up mine, he just wins this game.
Wow, that would be absolutely crazy. What a turn of events here. Just talking, saying that, oh, this match might be over already. What an opening for Dinh-Kha, and now suddenly it seems like there's at least an opening for Adrian Dursun.
I mean, there is always an opportunity, but you just have to make sure that you see the right lines.
That's a very small gap.
Yeah. Now, here he would have liked the Hornet Drones to be negated. And if Dinh-Kha were less experienced, he might have just attempted to negate it. But the Striker monsters don't apply any pressure here.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's targeting the drones, and that suggests to me that he's perhaps suggesting that he's playing like Orcust, or one of the combo decks that likes to use Striker cards as combo starters.
So he's trying to send him down the wrong rabbit hole, basically.
Yeah, exactly. We have a little bit of kind of deception going
psychological warfare here.
Okay, at this point, once you're going into the next Striker link, your opponent knows that you're not playing Orcust. we know that we're playing against Striker here.
Yeah, so much for that little bluff. It's like, at this point, Dinh-Kha is like, yeah, I'm calling.
Yeah, at this point, Dinh-Kha is like, okay, he's on Striker. That's totally fine. Pancratops comes down, and it's normally a very impactful card, but the Phantasme offers a counter to it, and because the Phantasme was summoned under Saryuja, it's after gaining 300 attack as well. So Hope Harbinger is being attacked by Pancratops. This is possibly going to force the activation of the Hieratic Seal of 7 Spheres.
And Ka is thinking about it. Would you activate it in his, if you put yourself in his shoes here?
I think it's unfortunate that he summoned Hope Harbinger in defense position, but yeah, you kind of have to use the Hieratic Seal. And he is discarding Nessie. And this is the thing, the danger cards are just super versatile. Like, by discarding Nessie, you're able to just add another danger, so you've not lost any cards. Right,
so Adrian, he's making the most of his options.
Yeah,
so there's definitely a positive in here for him. He's making the most out of the hand he's been dealt.
Yeah, and that's the skill of somebody who is experienced. So Pancratops is after being negated by Phantasme.
Right.
But, you know, you don't need to just be good at playing the hands that you win. You need to be capable of winning the hands that should be loses. And Adrian is trying his best to achieve that.
Yes. I mean, it's a skill that if you need to see it in action, just watch any of the finals of Tom Rose.
Yeah.
That's what Marcello said earlier. But not enough, apparently.
So Hayate was going to attack, and again, Adrian, he tried his best. He had the mine, he had the out, but it just wasn't enough.
No.
And that's the danger of picking Striker in this format, is because Striker has a lot of cards that synergize with each other, but they synergize in specific ways, whereas the Thunder Dragon deck, all of the cards are able to just synergize because they're monsters that summon themselves. And so when you're playing into these very established boards, it's much easier to use all of your cards if they say blank summon this card rather than interact with my other stuff.
But going into this match, we basically said it seems like Adrian Dursun came up with one of the best choices where he has good grind game. He's got answers for mostly everything with his hand traps and everything. Now he's playing against one of the matchups that he's not like terribly behind. His opponent goes first. He doesn't really draw into the answers. I mean, he lets his opponent go first. That's important. And then he loses because Dinh-Kha just pulls an opening board that is kind of unbeatable for him. So is this the right choice for this tournament? Because at first I thought like this is one of the best choices, but should you just go for the train basically that Dinh-Kha is on and say, I'm just going to go all in and try to slam through this?
In my preparation for the event, I was expecting a lot of people to be on Thunder Dragon, which is what we saw. And I think if you're going to be on the spell card deck, so the value of being on a spell card deck is people are only going to have spell and trap removal game 2 because we've seen the format. This format, we've been shifting between answering Thunder Dragon and answering the back row decks.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, we were in the swing where we're over to Thunder Dragons. That might change for tomorrow in the main event, but right here, I think if you just played a Mystic Mine pure deck, which just focused on getting mine out as quickly as possible, then that would be a stronger choice.
Right.
Striker obviously is consistent, but again, I believe that with the Thunder Dragon deck, because of how dangers interact with cards, you have a lot of redundancy where even though you have cards with different names, just like with Burning Abyss, a lot of them would end up acting as the same card.
Right.
Right? Because you just need monsters. You don't care what monster they are as long as they get themselves onto the board for you.
So Dinh-Kha still looks pretty relaxed considering the circumstances. Still not like super nervous or anything. And Adrian Dursun, I've seen him in that very same situation a couple of times before. I don't know why, but I think in many feature matches he at least drops one game. So I would say he's a bit used to this. He doesn't seem to be like his nerves getting the better of him or him basically calling it a day and say, this is not meant to happen today.
No, he can still totally win this game, but it is unfortunate to be on the back foot here because game 1 is super important against Thunder Dragons, especially because the problem is if you go first and interact with the Thunder Dragons, you're in a fine position. But we saw that his list was focused on going second. So presumably he's going to go second again because he wants to establish mine. But again, even if you're interacting with Thunder Dragons, if they establish a Colossus, it's really hard for some striker hands to do anything.
Yeah.
Like,
so we're almost ready to start the second game. There's a bit more shuffling happening here. Who do you favor going into the second? I mean, you just explained it. It depends a bit on...
I think Adrian should be favored going into this game, but it really depends on if he's going first and what starting hands are. Because if he goes second, I think it's always favored towards the Thunder Dragons. Again, just because, like, Colossus is a card which requires so little commitment and already is preventing a lot of your ability to do stuff.
All right.
Like, the Sky Striker deck does not have one single card that shuts off half of the Thunder Dragon deck. And that's the danger of playing Striker at the moment.
I'm not entirely sure, but it almost looked like Adrian received a warning because he took like a little bit longer to finish side decking. Obviously, this is one of the tournaments where it doesn't matter as much if you're getting a warning, because if you win the match, you just have to make sure in the second game that it doesn't happen again. It's not like there's 11 more rounds or something where you need to be careful.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's a lot of pressure on these guys.
Yes, even if it happened, I don't think it will like affect him too heavily. I think Adrian Dursun is perfectly aware of what could happen. So this time he does have hand traps, plural,
Yeah,
more
Ghost
than one.
Ogre and Ash Blossom are nice. Ghost Ogre on Saryuja is really strong. He has a Shark Cannon, but he doesn't have a Widow Anchor to back up the Mystic Mine, which is unfortunate, because that's what I think you really are generally aiming for. Ooh, that is an unfortunate hand for Ka. He is after passing, having only searched with Thunder Dragon, and that's it.
It's very different from the first duel. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, he could have established a Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, but there's no value to that. And additionally, Adrian only has pressure if he can get into his Utopia package, which requires him to have 2 level 4 monsters, which is super awkward for him to get to turn 1, and he just doesn't have access to it here. So the most damage he can do is 3,000.
Yeah.
He can send Engage with a Hayate. Phantasme comes down, which is quite good. Ash Blossom is going to say, no, you're going to stay in the hand.
Do you agree with that? Because now Ash Blossom is gone. Do you not need it for something else?
There's nothing else you really are going to be proactively ashing in this deck. And it's likely that we see Adrian just establishing the Mystic Mine here. Because I think you have to assume that the Thunder Dragon is going to start putting out pressure very soon.
Right. So, is there a moment where Adrian Dursun is like, is this a trap? Where when Dinh-Kha didn't go for infinite moves, where he's just like super nervous about this opening and saying, I'm not going to fall for this? Or, well, not really, right?
You know that the Thunder package has the ability to brick and have hands which are very clunky, and this is what we're seeing here. So, you know, if Dinh-Kha had stuff, he would have played stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you don't hold out on doing that. But at the same time, you kind of need to figure out, like, how many cards is he missing to enable his plays? Like, if Dinh-Kha had been able to summon the Phantasme, then he'd be able to go Phantasme, Collapse Serpent, and just start putting pressure out on this game.
And,
Okay, so Adrian is electing not to establish Mystic Mine, which is kind of good for him here, because it means the Twin Twisters is likely to come down on the back row.
Right.
He'll be able to Shark Cannon to clear the Thunder Dragon from the graveyard, which is burning a resource. And then he also just has the fact that he's going to be able to establish the mine unless a negate is established.
so it looks more like he's aiming for another turn where he then is going to establish his big play, so to speak. Would you agree with that, or would you have tried to establish the mine already?
I think I probably would have aimed to establish the mine, but you can assume that there's a read there that if Dinh-Kha is passing, he potentially doesn't have any live cards in hand, which means he's likely to have interaction in terms of like Twin Twisters. Very important here that Adrian has to banish the Thunder Dragon, because if he banished the Thunder Dragon Dark instead, it would be able to activate its effect, which is definitely not something he wants to do. And it's a bit of a punish for Dinh-Kha for not summoning the Black Dragon on the previous turn, because if he had summoned the Black Dragon and was able to clear it off the field, he would be able to summon a White Dragon here.
Right.
Again, though, Adrian doesn't have pressure, so he's going to have to establish card advantage and win through that.
It's like the traditional way of winning games. It's not what we see very often these days, where normally you just establish a gigantic board and then opponent is like, okay, I'm calling it a day.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like, realistically, Sky Striker has no Blue Eyes White Dragon. It has nothing that is large.
what does
and
that
applies
mean?
pressure.
You're saying no beautiful cards, no pretty cards?
I mean,
I know you mean something different. It's fine, it's fine. I'm just...
Blue Eyes is a very beautiful card.
Yeah, I mean, it's got blue eyes. So, right, are we going to see a big turn from Dinh-Kha here now?
I mean, this is the turn that
This
he has
is it,
to win.
right?
Like, realistically, the problem is that he knows that Adrian has had time to start establishing stuff, and Adrian is going to have spell cards in the graveyard. So, like I've said with Marcello earlier, the kind of more tempo-y based decks like Striker and Salamangreat, once they get later into the game, they start having more value to their plays. Because Dinh-Kha's deck is trying to just burn through all the resources quickly and establish a whiteboard.
Yep.
Whereas if the Striker player starts resolving multiple engages, it becomes a very difficult game for Thunder Dragons.
Obviously, yeah. That's the one card you really don't want to see. And how crucial are the hand traps here that Adrian has? With the 2 copies of Ghost Ogre now. Do you think they're going to be putting in a lot of work?
I mean, the Ogre potentially can. Again, he can only use one Ogre per turn, so he'll have to make sure that he times it right. It's been pointed out that Dinh-Kha could have just sat on a Colossus earlier in the game, which could have been a good choice, because if you make a Colossus using one of the Thunder Dragons from the field, then they generate card advantage. They return the investment that you make. As it is, we see 2 Thunder Dragons on the board. Is this something you ever expected to see in 2019 Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah, the last part was very important when you said in 2019 Yu-Gi-Oh! Because obviously I thought, yeah, of course that's something I expected to see 7 years ago. Or maybe,
7 years ago.
Yeah, I think like 12 years ago, I don't know.
2005 is a bit more than that.
It's a bit, yeah, it's a bit more way back in time. It almost feels like somebody brought out the Wayback Machine here. If the blue card would be a ritual monster rather than Link monster.
Yeah, for sure. It's just Blackluster Soldier, but
Yeah.
half the attack.
Maybe we could just green cap it and like bringing old school back.
Yeah.
All right. So it seems like there's different ways to play the hand that Dinh-Kha had. He went for a different way to do it. We want to bring the Dragon Duo up?
Yeah, I think Dragon Duo is an interesting one because it's not something...
Yeah,
like, Thunder Dragon has gone through a few different variations in the past, and Duo is only something that we've really started seeing in more recent times. So there was like the pure Thunder Dragon deck, and then we got the Danger Thunder Dragon deck.
Everything is more recent than old school Thunder Dragon.
Sure, but
what was it, like the second set or the third set?
Metal Raiders.
Metal
is the
Raiders, second
original
set, yeah.
Dragon. Yeah. But Thunder Dragon Duo, the lists back at like YCS London were not playing Duo at all. But it's really kind of fallen into favor, particularly because it lets you banish cards, whereas when we had Fairy Tale Snow, she was a far more effective way of banishing cards from the graveyard.
So the clock has been stopped. There's a bit of an interference, or rather a check with the judge. Now things are continuing at the regular pace. What was the question here? It's obviously a card interaction, but what interaction was it exactly?
I believe it's Ghost Ogre versus the Duo. Okay. So now he can overlay his 2 Thunder Dragons for Pleiades, right? No, he can't. He's not playing it. So Colossus comes down, is going to attack the Shizuku. And this is kind of surprising because we see that Dinh-Kha is on a very reserved field for Thunder Dragons. Like, I don't think we've seen fields like this in the past.
It's not what we normally expect. And it's also like the chat really doesn't agree with his plays here. There are like some scrubby players that haven't been reaching any success at the top level stage, like Jesse Cotton and Bowden Temnik, and they are not happy with the way that Dinh-Kha is playing here.
I mean, again, there's a lot of pressure in these matches. It's great to see kind of prominent members of the community being in the chat and engaging.
What do you mean prominent? Okay, so
not more prominent than yourself.
Oh, that's not what I was hinting at here. All right, so Adrian Dursun definitely not in the worst of situations here. He can come back from this. What's the card that he wants to draw here?
I mean, I would normally say Sky Striker, Mobilize, Engage. He has an anchor in hand, or he has an anchor in play. So engaging through a Colossus is nice, but I think we're going to see another Colossus coming down. Realistically, establishing Mystic Mine is fine here.
It's fine here.
You just go Mystic Mine, let's draw some cards.
It's a bit of an underestimation, isn't it?
That's fine. This is why Mystic Mine is bonkers, because if your opponent doesn't have spell and trap removal, you just sit there and you're like, I'm going to draw a million
I'm
cards.
just waiting for a reprint of this card, and then somebody's going to tell me, hey, we have changed the card text, you can translate it into whatever you want, and then I'm just going to write, this card is bonkers.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to obviously quote you, so you end up in some trouble as well.
Awesome.
So
I like it.
So it's not just me.
This card is bonkers.
It's going to be,
level
yeah, exactly.
It's
a short print version of
but
Mystic
in German,
Mine.
right?
In German, yeah.
For the OTS ulti.
But we're going to keep the English text just for fun.
Sure. So Hayate is coming down. And again, Hayate will let Adrian start throwing spell cards in his graveyard. Realistically, he wants to be able to clear the Hayate from his board because the mine is most likely going to pop at the end of this turn, which is not what he wants to happen.
Right, so this is going back and forth a lot more than I thought at the very beginning, because it looked like Kha didn't have a good opening hand. Adrian Dursun had some things, had some ways to stop and interrupt his opponent's plays. And now suddenly this has turned into the regular roller coaster that we're seeing every single match today. What's the reason for that? Is it just the experience of these players that they can make something out of nothing?
I mean, honestly, there's just so much going on at this point that I think, like, holding concentration can be difficult for these guys. But when they do have their concentration, they're, like, super involved and aware of what they're doing. We saw Anchor coming down on Phoenix, which is unfortunate for Kha, but he should have a Unicorn as well, I think.
But that is it. Wow, what a back and forth between these two guys. They fought tooth and nails in this match. And in the end, it is Adrian Dursun who comes out on top in the second duel. Now it's 1-1 with just 13 more minutes on the clock. What a barn burner this is. This match is going back and forth between two German superstars, Dinh-Kha and Adrian Dursun. They are trying to repeat the success of the other two German competitors in this special tournament. Joshua Schmidt in the first round went up against Paul Schuffenecker from France. He came out on top. Sorry, second round wasn't the German player. Of course, that was Raphael Neven. But Netherlands, Germany...
He went to a lot of German events.
Exactly. It's almost the same. I mean, we're happy. I'm just offering him German citizenship at this point, okay?
Sure. The key to the city.
Exactly.
While we're in the Netherlands.
He can get that if he wants,
What you're trying to say is both of the French players got knocked out in the first two rounds.
Yes, actually that might have been what I was aiming at. But without saying it as a negative thing.
No,
because obviously, like, ending up in the top 8 is already an accomplishment in itself.
For sure. And again, the French scene has been growing like crazy this year.
Yes,
it
absolutely.
Is super impressive. And, like, even though those two are out, I'm expecting them to go very far tomorrow and on Sunday.
All right, so what's changing looking at the side decks for that third and final duel? Do you think there are any more surprises, or both of these guys know what's been waiting on the other side?
I don't think he changed much. Again, because the Thunder Dragon deck, I mean, you can bring back in Sekka's Light, but if you bring in Sekka's Light, you have to be sure that you are winning the game with the board you established turn 1. So the safer option would be to keep Twin Twisters in. Realistically, I would expect Kha to go first, and I would expect Adrian to have whatever hand traps he has available, things like Artifact Lancia, to kind of limit what Dinh-Kha is able to do.
Yeah. So to quote my Italian colleague, nice handshake, always great to see. Ready to get our game on for the third and final duel between Adrian Dursun and Dinh-Kha. It's going to be the last duel for one of these guys.
That is very big. Adrian has Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere Mode in his hand, which is such a strong card.
He must be happy. He must be happy about this. But he's going first.
He's going first. He is going to end on Shizuku Search Engage, most likely, which is not really where you want to be, because now he's in the kind of awkward position where Dinh-Kha could potentially just end the game on his first turn.
Like, so you think the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode is not going to come in if he... I mean, obviously, if he manages to pull this off. How likely is that?
So what most likely has happened is Adrian thought he was going second, and Dinh-Kha made him go first.
Yes.
Dinh-Kha is after drawing Chaos Emperor King of Armageddon, his shiny new prize card, which he has won like 2 or 3 of. He has at least a playset this season.
Yeah, this was actually one of the veteran questions where Joshua Schmidt was like, I need this prize card for my deck. Some of the other players didn't even realize they could ask for this. They asked me, when do I get this prize card? And then I just told them, whenever you want. I mean, I want to show them on the stream, but if you want to play them, that's no problem. And then Joshua was the first guy who basically forced this question.
Yeah, so we're seeing Dangers doing danger things, which is to say summoning themselves.
Among other things.
Among other things.
Yeah.
We have another Tsuchinoko. It'll be very unfortunate if this hits itself, If it doesn't, it's really strong.
I remember this one streamer guy. He doesn't have like a lot of followers, but you should really check out his channel. It's quite interesting. I think his name is like Fafa or something. He once said that the Dangers are really good at putting a body on the field and drawing a card at the same time. And that was like just one sentence that really wrapped this thing up. And I was like, that sounds pretty good, to be honest, to someone.
They're really strong. So the closest thing that you could compare Dangers to is they are very close to the classic card Upstart Goblin, in that if cards in your graveyard are valuable, then you don't lose resources by summoning a danger. And so that is why they are so valuable in these Thunder decks and why they were strong in things like Burning Abyss.
Yep.
Because you always got value from them and you never lost card advantage.
And how bummed is Adrian Dursun going to feel if he sees Chaos Emperor, the Dragon of Armageddon?
I mean, we'll find out very soon.
It's like it's just keeping it neutral here. Like, let's see. I mean, he's not looking too happy. Dinh-Kha has his usual phase of super confidence. Quite honestly, this is just take a screenshot at this point, start a Yu-Gi-Oh! Dictionary and say confidence, and then you just put this face on it and you're like, okay.
Oh, do you see that card at the top of his deck?
Oh, is he
That
stacking?
is a classic. Are you familiar with Eradicator Epidemic Virus?
Yes. It's an old card, so that's why I know it.
Because it's a tree now, and so he has it sided in.
Oh,
And
so
it's
he
really-
was really planning this start to finish. He was like, I'm going to write my own story here. This is going to be entertaining. And wow, look at Dinh-Kha. I mean, I've seen this a couple of times with him. He is always in for a surprise in the feature match, especially when the stakes get bigger, his showmanship gets bigger.
Yeah.
He's like the perfect guy to feature, especially late in the day.
So, I mean, again, what he's aiming for here is he wants to just end the game. Triple Burst Dragon, really strong against Shizuku, because it prevents Rei from being able to summon herself back to the field. And that means that now Adrian is all shields down. He has an Ash Blossom, which he's already used this turn, right?
Yeah,
So,
actually, the chat even pointed out it's the worst Ash I've ever seen. I'm not sure if I'm agreeing there, but it definitely didn't put in as much work as we wanted it to put in.
I mean, here's the issue with Ash, and this is why I love Marcello's list from National season. I don't know if you saw it, but he just played 3 Ray, and everything else was spell cards. It was just 37 spell
Right.
cards because, you know, Ash doesn't really do anything a lot of the time. It's a super like safe hand trap, but it's also very low impact, especially against this deck.
Yeah.
Against this deck, you want Droll, you want Lancia, you want stuff that just says,
You're done.
"Stop."
Yeah, exactly. Stop. So this morning when we have these gigantic gates in the entry of the venue, and then somebody started opening them, and then was it you or Rudy said the floodgates are opening?
It was Rudy.
That was Rudy. Okay, yeah. We have to give it a shout out to Rudy, who's doing the written coverage this weekend. You can check it out. He's going to have profiles of all of these 8 players that made it to the playoff here. So they're going to be memorized forever in our written coverage. And wow, this is really going Dinh-Kha Bui's way. Adrian Dursun cannot be feeling too well. I mean, we looked at the opening hand. We said the Winged Dragon of Ras Firmo. That's an amazing card in his opening. But it's almost like Dinh-Kha Bui listened to us, and he's like, yeah, I can play around that card by just going all in on the first turn.
Boral Sword Dragon. Real
Wow,
big.
it's just like he keeps bringing the pain. It's almost like he played with his opponent in that second game where we said that some people in the chat called him out. He should have played with this hand.
Yeah.
And now he's like, no, I just saved all my luck and all my power for the third and final duel. And now look at me, watch me now.
I mean, this is a board to end the game on.
And that is it. Wow, Dinh-Kha Bui is in the semifinals of the Worlds Playoff. What a performance. Completely dominates the first game and the third game. We talk about it in our post-match analysis. Again, we're just completely mind blown at this point. What a performance. We've seen this last round. We saw it again, Dinh-Kha Bui. First game, completely in control. He was like
For sure.
the most relaxed player in the venue, I would say.
I mean, the most valuable thing was the switch around he did. If he had not made Adrian go first, with the hands that we
Yes.
saw, Adrian was super favored. But being able to say, you go first.
Yes.
After you. You know, and that's the problem with the Striker deck and why Thunder is kind of favored in this matchup is because sometimes Striker goes first and it just doesn't do enough.
Yes.
Striker wants to play those kind of back and forth games where eventually I just start resolving multiple engages, and Thunder Dragon doesn't give you the time to do that. We saw game 2 where it went relatively long, and Adrian was able to take that because he was just kind of carrying on stronger. But when the games go short, Thunder Dragon is super much in the driver's seat.
But we did see, as you pointed out, psychology plays such a major role in these matches.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, when you're at this level where everybody's skill level in terms of understanding what the decks are doing and how you need to play one deck against the other is maxed out, basically. There's no more left to learn for these guys, more or less, like maybe 1%.
For sure. Like, I mean, these guys understand how the game works, and they understand how each other work as well.
Yeah.
Like, these are high-profile players. They have played against each other before, no doubt.
And just imagine that. I mean, we had matches. Paul Schiffenhofer versus Joshua Schmidt. Not bad. Definitely a good match.
Yeah.
Then we had Rafael Nevin versus Sebastian Ma, which was an amazing match. We just saw that match going down between two of the best players in Europe. And we're not done for the first round of this tournament. There's still Jake Quincy versus Jonas Koschel. And both of these guys have come very far.
For sure.
Jake Quincy is a super consistent player. Actually, we can talk about that at the start of the next match. I mean, obviously, so this match was everything we promised it to be, and then some.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw a lot of back and forth in Game 2, which was really great to see. And we really saw kind of how much it pays off to choose the deck that you think is best for the event, and then also know how to get in your opponent's head.
Yes, absolutely. So, well, masterful execution. You have to feel bummed for all of the players that are losing in the first round. But again, great accomplishment, just playing in the tournament in the first place.
For sure.
And yeah, so 3 of the 4 players are set. We can bring up the brackets for you guys. I'm just going to tell you, the winner of one of our matches, Rafael Nevin, is going to go up against the winner of our last match. So either Jake Quincy or Jonas Koschel. And then the other match in the semifinals is Joshua Schmidt versus Dinh-Kha. So Joshua Schmidt versus Dinh-Kha. Also another massive match. But all of these matches all day long, super exciting. All right, guys, with that, we're going to take another short break. It's going to be 5 to 10 minutes. And then we're going to be back for the last of the quarterfinals of the playoff. This is actually like taking more energy than the main event for me.
Yeah, I mean,
because all these matches are just like high quality.
Exactly. Like, super high quality play. We know that these are going to go to Game 3. And, like, I'm super excited to see what the last 2 players are on, because we've seen 6 of the 8 decks.
Yep. So it's going to be exciting. I got the deck list here, but I'm not going to spoil you guys. We're going to take that short break, and then we're going to be right back with the 4th quarterfinal. See you very, very soon.